I know, it's fine.
I will fresh.
Fine. Okay. Guys, today's shir is a schis for Akiva Simcha Ben Fega, for a zivigung for Chav Bas Miriam, a zivigung for Huv Bas Miriam, and for Dovdai Ben Penina Perel. Just interesting, like everybody says, this is the first year back from the whole weekend. So a few things. Number one, very obviously we have good news, but also we have to always keep davening for the Eden Tisrul, our Israeli Mashbucha, Mama Tamearet? No, okay. No. Anyways, bottom line, also, very funny thing to point out, not funny, it's a very crazy coincidence. Both my grandfather's yard sites is the same day. Now, it's the first, since they're both their yard sites are Yud Gimel, and they're both nifter the same day, same year, same everything. One was in America, one was in Israel, and both my father's father, my mother's father nifter the same day. And I got the news, the phone call was that Dan Zayt did nifter geworden from my aunt, and I asked her, welche? Beide. I hung up the phone, I don't know what to do. And so, call my father, verified. So this year is also going to be Linishmas, both my grandfathers, Moshe ben Shmuel and Sukka Daf ben Yitzchak. Okay. Fiyah Simcha Simba. And what?
Ruchel Basura
Pesel. Okay. We're starting right now. I hope everybody's back to normal, but there's some wine on the table. If anybody wants, the Rebbe is making later a Shisham Pidim Tish. So, let us start. We're back Chav Gimel Amid Aleph. Chav Gimel Amid Aleph. Right now, right there. Yeah. Chav Gimel Amid Aleph. We are up to, there's about 12, 13 lines up. My timer. The mem test, the first word is my timer. And just to recap what it was that we discussed last week, basically, we had as follows. We had, our Mishnah said, Gabi Gomel, we explained the case if you build a sukkah on top of an animal, and then we shifted to a whole new case. What if you use the animal as a wall? Right? We shifted to that. Once we shifted to that, we had a machlokes, Reb Meir and Reb Yehuda. Reb Yehuda says it's okay to use it. Reb Meir says it's not okay to use it. So right now, we're on the my timer. Why does Reb Meir say it's not okay to use an animal for a wall? What's his reasoning? And let's start from there. My time with Reb Meir. What's Reb Meir's reasoning for why you cannot use an animal for a wall? So we have two Amirim that's going to come and explain them. Abaya Amar Shema Tamos, Reb Zera Amar Shema Tivrach. Abaya says perhaps the animal is going to die. So if you put an animal for a wall and it dies, you're not going to have a wall for a sukkah anymore. It's going to be a non-kosher sukkah, and you're not going to be able to use it. Reb Zera says maybe it's going to run away. So now we're going to see a bunch of different examples. How do we keep it there, tie it down, and so on. So the first example is Bepil Kasher Kule Amalei Pligi. So everyone agrees that if it was an elephant that was tied, everyone agrees it would be fine. It would be a kosher sukkah, even Reb Meir. Why? Because if it dies, according to Abaya, you still have 10 tfachim. If it's tied down, so it's not going to run away. So in both cases, we're good. So now, because if it dies, you have in its carcass 10. Kipligi, when do we argue? Bepil she'ene kasher. What are they arguing? With an elephant that's not tied up. According to Manda Amar, that what happens if it dies? Abaya, he's not concerned if it dies that it can be a problem. Why is he not concerned? Because I just see the guys on Zoom that have low battery. My bad. So if you guys get cut off, we're gonna try to get something back on later. Okay. Chashin Shem Thomas. So he says it would like Chashin. No, I have 5%. It's fine. We'll switch to somebody else's if it goes. USB-C? No, he's good. They can see it. What?
USB-C?
ESC. Yeah? Shkach. So he says Bepil Shein Kasher Leman Da'amar Shem Thomas Lo Chashinan. We don't suspect. Why? Because if it dies, you have the wall still. Leman Da'amar Gzer Shem Tivrach Chashinan. He's concerned for this. Leman Da'amar Gzer Shem Thomas Nechos Shem Tivrach. So now we're going to say 1 second. If you're concerned. No, it's not going to work. It's not going to work. Okay. No, it's fine. We'll switch a phone. We'll switch. Fine, yeah, fine. Okay. It's fine. Yeah, okay, fine. Well, we're going to do a little bit faster. Why? We're concerned maybe it's going to run away. Why? Because what's more common? for it to die or to run away? To run away is more common. So if you're concerned it's going to die, avad to be concerned it's going to run away, what are you going to do with that? So the Gemara says, good question, we concede to that. So he says like this, Elo b'pil she'inei kosher. We're talking about an elephant that's not tied up. Kuli amali pligi. In that case, everyone would agree. Also, it would be no good. Why? Because it could die or it could run away. So now, ki pligi, bebehema kshura. Now we're switching. Till now we said it was an elephant, now we're switching a regular animal. Now how does this change? Because lemanda amar gzer shematamos chashinon. Why? Because if a regular animal dies, it doesn't have a carcass like an elephant, it's not 10 tefachim high, you're not going to have a wall, it's no good. Lemanda amar gzer shemativrach lechashinon. Also, why? Because it's tied up. So we're going to say this. According to the Manda Amar that says it may run away, which we said now we want to flip it. Just like before we said, according to you that's worried it's going to run away, maybe it's going to die. Now we're saying, according to the one that says maybe it's going to die, maybe it's going to run away is more common. Okay, even though it's less common, but maybe it's going to die. So he says, he says, Misa lo shchicha. Dying is not so common, therefore he's not concerned. So now, so now we're going to ask another question. Great, you're not concerned it's going to die? Fine, but it still has a lot of gap space, and that's a problem. So he says, you stuff up the place with branches and twigs. Vidilma river, but what happens if it's going to sit down and now you're not going to have the 10 tfachim all the way through to the top? So he says, the Mesicha ba'ashi milel. Mama should come up with all answers for any question you have. We got an answer. We're tying it with strings, with ropes from on top. It can't get away. So now, great, 1 second. You came up with a great idea. You're going to tie it up to the top. So it's not going to run away. It's not going to sit down. So what happens if it dies? It's not going to drop down. You're going to have the 10 tefachim. What's the problem? That's a great thing. So let's use it for there. So he says, Nami. Let us also say tie it with cords from the top. So the answer is Zimnin de Moikim La B'Pachis Mishleisha. The answer is that maybe this animal is not even 10 tefachim high, and it's within 3 tefachim from the top, and we know within 3 tefachim we say lavud. But what happens? Here it's exactly 7 and a little tefachim tall the animal. Samach l'schach, close to the schach. V'kivan de Maisa, and once it dies, kavtza v'lavadate. So basically what happens is the animal's going to die. He's going to shrink a little bit, and when he shrinks, no one is going to realize, you're not going to be able to see, it's not discernible how much space dropped down. So what happens? It's going to die, and you're not going to know, and you won't have a kosher sukkah. Very good. So to end off and to summarize this part is, Rameir is chayesh for Misa, Rabbi Yehuda is not chayesh for Misa. Just remember, we're going to go through this chayesh for Misa or not a few times. Rameir is concerned that the animal may die, Rabbi Yehuda is not concerned. So now, this is the new part that we're learning today. Umi Amar Abaya, really, does Rabbi really say Rameir Chayesh Lemisa of Rabbi Yehuda Lo Chayesh? Does he really say this? Because right now, this whole breakdown that we just learned sounds like Rameir says, Abaya says Rameir is Chayesh and Rabbi Yehuda is not. So what does the Gemara do at best? It comes with the stira. It says, great, you said he is, he's not, I have a case the opposite. V'hatnan, we have a Mishnah in Masechtas Gittin. Now, to understand this, Bas Yisrael shenisas a kohen, v'halach l'medinas hiyam. A Bas Yisrael, a lady who was a Yisraelis, gets married to a kohen, and her husband went to Medinas Hiyam. Alchelas b'truma b'cheskas shu kayim. So very simple. What do we say? She eats truma b'cheskas shu kayim, which means that we're not suspicious. We don't suspect that he's going to die, right? So what's a Bas Yisrael that marries a Kohen? Very simple. Truma is something that only Kohanim can eat. A lady that's married to a Kohen, unless she was born a Kohenes, she cannot eat unless she gets married to him. And if she's married to him, she can eat it. Now what happens if he dies? She can't eat it anymore. However, if they had kids, then she could eat it if he dies. If she gets divorced, done, can't eat it anymore. So here's a case that they don't have kids. He goes to Medinas Hiyam. If he dies, then she's not allowed to eat. So how do we know that she's allowed to eat this truma all along? So in that case, we say there's a chazaka that where you don't suspect that the husband will die. Great, that's case number 1. That's the Mishnah in Gittin. Over there, by the Mishnah in Gittin, the Gemara brings down a brisa, and the brisa is going to say exact opposite. Not exact, but it's going to basically you're able to infer that you are chayesh. Uraminan, and we asked over there by Gittin a stira. Or minan Allah. Harei zagitech sha'achas koydem misasi. Asura le'echel b'truma miyad. So what happens? Let's say her husband's with her right before he's about to leave. They don't have kids. He doesn't want her to be stuck to have to do yibum, because what happens if they don't know where his brother is, let's say, or the brother's too young and she would have to be stuck for many years. So he gives her a get with a condition that this get only works an hour before I die. She can't eat at all. Why? Because we suspect he may die within the hour, and if he dies within this hour at any time, retroactively she was not allowed to eat truma. An hour before. So retroactively for that hour she's not allowed to eat. So we see from that brisa that we are chayish for misa, right? So we have a case that we are chayish for misa. We have a case that we're not.
Yeah, but
1 second. You're going to get exactly to that in a second. That's going to be the answer. Exactly what you're thinking. I'm telling you. Okay. So he says. So comes Abaya, and Abaya is going to clarify it. And this is the whole point of bringing this case, because Abaya is the one that says it over here. The Rameir is chayish for misa. Rabbi is not. So over there happens to be Abaya is going to be the Amira to clarify there too. Va'amar Abaya, loy kasha, this is not a stira. Why is it not a stira? Harab Meir, the loy chayish l'misa. Harab Yehuda, the chayish l'misa. 1 second. That's exactly why we brought this. Reb Meir says it's not a kasha. Two different Tanaim are allowed to have two different opinions. But they're allowed to. A Tana is allowed to have his opinion. So a Tana says he is chayish l'misa, a Tana says he's not. But what's the problem? Abaya by us was just saying the whole time, we had a bunch of scenarios, that what? That Rameir is chayish, Rabbi Yehuda is not chayish. Comes these two cases, and how does Abaya reconcile it over there? He says Rameir deloy chayish l'misa, Rabbi Yehuda de chayish l'misa. So he's exactly saying the opposite of his position. So how do we go further with this? So comes and now we want to understand. Okay, 1 second. Abaya says this, right?
I'm not kasha.
Yeah.
In the second Mishnah,
Yeah.
the guy is suspecting that he's dying because he says an hour before I die.
Yeah.
So Lamar said you have to be chayish l'misa no matter what.
Why? So, but why not by the other case?
Because he wasn't stated. Like, I'm going to Medina I'll see you in 2 weeks.
No, I'll see you in 2 weeks. He said I'll see you in 2 weeks, and you don't see. He's not back. It's irrelevant. It means he's gone. You don't know. But what happens if he died? No. What happens if he died? Let's say Medina Siyam means dangerous. They would be away for months. What happens if the guy Taka? You find out 10 years later he died. Throughout these 10 years, she ate up. It was a problem. There was a problem. So now comes. Now we want to understand, how does Abaya understand this? These two things. How does Abaya get that in over there? We want to understand over there where he says that the opposite. He says the opposite. How does he get to that? So he says the Sanya. Halekech yain mi ben akutim. It's going to be a few more lines, and then we'll do a quick chazara. The Tanya. Here, there's a brisa that shows and proves how Abaya got to his point, his statement, that who's what. So, the Tanya, we learned in the Brisa, halekech yain mi ben hakutim. Someone who takes wine from the kutim. Quick thing, kutim, or people that became yidden, there were animals chasing them, and they decided to be megayer. They were not. It was a problem. But at that time, you're allowed to get wine from them. Rashi says that there was a point when they made exer and you were not allowed to. At that time, you're still allowed to. Someone who took wine from the kutim. Aymer, and he says, Shnei lugin shani asid li farish harei hein truma. These two lugin, I will separate them in the future. What happens is, it's Erev Shabbos, this guy has a barrel of wine, and he wants to drink from this barrel of wine on Shabbos. Problem is that he wasn't mafresh truma. They don't know, the kutim, they were suspicious, and that they would not. And what you have to do is you have to separate. Truma, you have to separate 2%. Basically, truma is a very simple breakdown, a brief breakdown. Here's truma g'dayla, you take off 2%. By the way, this is from MDY, so just in case anyone wants to know, credits to them. Truma, you take off 2%. Ma'aser Rishon would go to the Levi. So to the Kohen is 2%, to the Levi 10%. The Levi gives to the Kohen 10% of what he took, and then we, on separate alternating years, not alternating, 1, 2, 4, 5, 10% Ma'aser Sheni, 3 and 6, 10% Ma'aser Ani. So what happens is, you have to separate it. You can't drink until it's separated. So, he goes ahead and he separates, he says, verbally, I will separate it, and I'm separating it now in the barrel. And after Shabbos, I'm going to actually put it to the side. Right now, he doesn't have where to put it. So he says, Shnei lugin shan yasadi farish harei hein truma. Asara, Ma'aser Rishon, Tisha Ma'aser Sheni, like we showed over here, each one is separated. Umeichel, he redeems it. V'shoysa miyad, divrei Meir, he's allowed to drink it right away. These are the words of Meir. Rabbi Yehuda, Rabbi Yossi, Rabbi Shimon, Oisrin, they answer it. So what do you see? Rabbi Meir allows you to drink. Rabbi Yehuda doesn't allow you. So what does that tell you? Rabbi Meir allows you to drink because he does not suspect that the jug will break over Shabbos. He says he's loy chayash l'misa. Somehow we take misa of a person dying to a barrel breaking. He says, I don't suspect it's going to break. So to the same effect, I don't suspect that the person's going to die. And Rabbi Yehuda, the opposite. Now, this still brings back the question that we started this Amud with, which is, does Abaye really say Rabbi Meir chayash l'misa, Rabbi Yehuda not? We're going to see that tomorrow, the answer to that. But let's do a quick recap. So, the recap is from the top of the Amud. Umi Amar Abaye, Rabbi Meir chayash l'misa, Rabbi Yehuda chayash loy chayash. Do we really say that Abaye says Rabbi Meir suspects that the person will die, or Rabbi Yehuda not? V'hatnan, we have a Mishnah. Bas Yisrael shenise is the kohen. Bas Yisrael the married is a kohen. V'halach ba'al medinas yam. And her husband went to medinas yam. Meichaz b'truma. B'cheskes shu kaim. She's allowed to eat truma. Why? There's a chazaka that he's still alive. Loy chayash l'misa. Uraminan. And over there we brought a stira. What's the stira? Uraminan Allah. Harei zegite chsha achas kodem misasi asura lecha b'truma miyad. Over there we have a stira that we have a case. He tells her, he gives her a get that works an hour before he dies. She's immediately not allowed to eat truma. Why? Because we suspect now it could be that hour. V'amar Abaye, loy kasha. Abaye says it's not a kasha. Har meir the loy chayash l'misa, har biuda the chayash l'misa. He says it's not a problem. It's two separate tanaim, and they're each entitled to their opinions. So now we want to understand, where does Abaye understand and know that Rabbi Meir holds this, Rabbi Yehuda holds this? He has a different brayso. The Sanya halekech yan mibin akutim. Omer shnei lugen shani asid litain shani asid lifarish harein truma asara ma'aserishin tisha ma'asesheni. Meaning he gives a full statement. I am separating these stuff for truma. Umechal, and he's able to redeem it. V'shoyse miyad divrei Rabbi Meir. These are the words of Rabbi Meir, which shows you that he is not chayish for misa. He's not chayish that the barrel will break. He's not chayish the person will die. And Rabbi Yehuda, Rabbi Yossi, Rabbi Shimon, Oisrin, they say that you can't do that. Why? They're concerned that the barrel will break, which means they're concerned also that the person will die. Rabbi say, I also want to say thank you very much, everyone, for the beautiful and thoughtful gift. Really, really appreciate it. And keep chazering and keep going. What?